Ellen DeGeneres thought she was walking into a friendly chat show appearance. What happened next on CNN's primetime slot left the former talk show queen absolutely speechless and may have just ended her comeback dreams forever. It started as a routine interview about celebrity activism and mental health awareness. But when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett walked onto that CNN set, she had documents in her hand that would expose Ellen's biggest secret. The moment she pulled out those papers, Ellen's famous smile vanished completely. What Crockett revealed next wasn't just shocking, it was devastating. The evidence she presented live on air showed exactly how Ellen had been lying to the American people for years. The studio audience gasped, the host's jaw dropped, and Ellen, she completely lost it. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss these explosive political moments. Trust me, you're going to want to see every second of what happened next. This wasn't just a celebrity meltdown. This was the moment when a rising political star took down one of Hollywood's biggest names with nothing but facts, courage, and perfect timing. Ellen tried to fight back, but she was no match for what Crockett had prepared. Let's break down exactly how this all went down, and why it's sending shockwaves through both Hollywood and Washington, D.C. To understand why this confrontation was so explosive, you need to know exactly who these two women are, and why their clash matters so much. Ellen DeGeneres used to be America's sweetheart. For 19 years, she hosted one of the most popular daytime talk shows in history. Her "Be Kind" motto made her seem like the perfect role model. She won countless awards, influenced millions of viewers, and built a media empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But then everything came crashing down. In 2020, reports surfaced about a toxic workplace culture behind the scenes of her show. Former employees spoke out about harassment, racism, and intimidation. The woman who preached kindness was accused of creating a nightmare work environment. Ellen's show ended in 2022, and her reputation was in ruins. For 2 years, she stayed mostly quiet, trying to rebuild her image. She started making carefully planned public appearances, talking about mental health and second chances. Many people thought she deserved forgiveness and a comeback. That's exactly what Ellen was trying to do on this CNN appearance. She was promoting her new mental health initiative and positioning herself as someone who had learned from her mistakes. She thought this would be a soft interview to help rehabilitate her public image. Jasmine Crockett is everything Ellen isn't expecting to face. At 43, this Texas Congresswoman has become one of the most fearless voices in American politics. She's a former civil rights attorney who doesn't back down from anyone, no matter how famous or powerful they are. Crockett made her name by taking on tough opponents in congressional hearings. She's the one who called out Marjorie Taylor Greene for her bleach blonde appearance. She's grilled corporate executives and made headlines for her sharp questioning of Supreme Court justices. What makes Crockett dangerous isn't just her legal background, it's her preparation. She does her homework, she brings receipts, and she's not intimidated by celebrity status or media manipulation. Crockett was invited onto this CNN show to discuss congressional oversight and corporate accountability. She knew Ellen would be there, and she came prepared with information that would change everything. This wasn't just a random celebrity versus politician moment. Ellen's comeback attempt represented something bigger. The idea that wealthy celebrities can apologize their way out of any scandal and return to influencing public opinion. Crockett represented the opposite view that real accountability means facing the full truth, not just giving pretty speeches about lessons learned. The stakes were huge. If Ellen successfully rehabilitated her image, it would signal that celebrity apologies can overcome any scandal. If Crockett exposed something that destroyed Ellen's comeback, it would show that some actions have permanent consequences. Neither woman knew they were about to create one of the most viral political moments of the year. But the collision was inevitable from the moment they both walked onto that set. The CNN host, Anderson Cooper, thought he was moderating a discussion about mental health and political accountability. Instead, he was about to witness a complete destruction that would trend worldwide within minutes. The CNN studio was set up for what seemed like a routine primetime discussion. Anderson Cooper sat between Ellen DeGeneres and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the stage lights creating a warm, professional atmosphere. Ellen wore her signature casual but expensive style designer jeans and a blazer that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Ellen was in full charm mode from the start. She talked about her journey of self-reflection, how she'd learned from her mistakes, and her new passion for mental health advocacy. Her voice was soft and measured, exactly the tone her media training had taught her to use for reputation repair. "I want to be clear," Ellen said, looking directly into the camera with those practiced, sincere eyes. "I've spent the last 2 years really examining my behavior and the culture of my show. I take full responsibility for not knowing what was happening behind the scenes." Cooper nodded sympathetically. This was going exactly as Ellen's team had planned. Soft questions, heartfelt answers, gradual image rehabilitation. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't buying any of it. She sat there with a manila folder in her lap, watching Ellen's performance with the cold calculation of a prosecutor who knows the defendant is lying under oath. "Ellen," Cooper said, "you've been very public about wanting to make amends. What does that look like practically?" Ellen leaned forward, her voice taking on that familiar caring tone that made her famous. "Well, Anderson, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm launching the Ellen DeGeneres Foundation for Workplace Wellness. We're committed to helping companies create better, kinder work environment. I'm personally donating $50 million to start." The studio audience murmured approvingly. This sounded good: concrete action, big money, apparent sincerity. That's when Crockett decided to speak up. "That's interesting, Ellen," Crockett said, her Texas accent cutting through Ellen's California polish, "because I'm curious about how this foundation will be run, given what I've discovered about how your previous charitable efforts were managed." Ellen's smile flickered for just a sec. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" Cooper sensed the shift in energy immediately. "Congresswoman Crockett, do you have specific concerns?" Crockett opened her folder and pulled out the first document. "Well, Anderson, as part of my committee's investigation into celebrity charity fraud, we've been looking into tax filings and financial records, and what we found about Ellen's past charitable work is quite revealing." Ellen's media training kicked in. She kept smiling, but anyone watching closely could see the tension in her shoulders. "I'm proud of all the charitable work I've done over the years." "Are you?" Crockett asked, pulling out more papers. "Because according to these IRS documents, your Ellen DeGeneres Wildlife Fund, the one you promoted heavily on your show, only donated 12% of the money raised to actual wildlife conservation. The rest went to administrative costs and consulting fees paid to companies owned by your wife, Portia." The studio went completely silent. Cooper's eyes widened. Ellen's smile finally cracked. Those numbers are taken out of context." Ellen stammered. "Running a foundation requires operational costs." 88% operational costs," Crockett interrupted, her voice rising. "Ellen, you raised $15 million from your viewers for wildlife conservation. Only $1.8 million actually reached wildlife organizations. Where did the other $13.2 million go?" Ellen looked trapped. Her media training hadn't prepared her for this level of detailed financial scrutiny. "I don't have those specific numbers in front of me, but I assure you I do have the numbers," Crockett said, standing up and walking closer to Ellen. "Because unlike your comeback tour interviews, congressional investigations actually require documentation." The audience was starting to murmur. Some people were pulling out their phones. Cooper tried to regain control. "Now let's," Cooper began. "No, Anderson," Crockett said firmly. "This is exactly the conversation we need to have. Ellen is here asking for forgiveness and launching another foundation. But the American people deserve to know how she's handled their trust and money in the past." Ellen's composure was slipping. The woman who had interviewed thousands of guests was now the one being grilled, and she clearly didn't like it. "This is really unfair," Ellen said, her voice getting higher. "I came here to discuss mental health awareness and positive change. This feels like an ambush." Crockett smiled coldly. "An ambush? Ellen, this is called accountability. Something you've been avoiding for 2 years." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut. Cooper tried one more time to steer things back to safer ground. "Perhaps we could focus on," Cooper started. "Actually, Anderson, I think we should focus on the Wildlife Fund employees," Crockett said, pulling out another document. "Because this gets worse." Ellen's face went pale. She clearly knew what was coming next. "Ellen, did you personally fire 3 Wildlife Fund employees who questioned where the money was going?" Crockett asked. "That's a personnel matter," Ellen began. "That became a legal matter when they filed whistleblower complaints," Crockett interrupted. "Complaints that were settled out of court with NDAs. How much did you pay to keep them quiet, Ellen?" The studio audience was now fully engaged, leaning forward to catch every word. Ellen looked around desperately, clearly wanting to escape. "This is really inappropriate," Ellen said, her voice shaking slightly. These are private legal matters. Private? Crockett's voice exploded with incredulous anger. Ellen, you used your platform to ask working families to donate their hard-earned money to save animals. When your own employees tried to expose that the money wasn't reaching those animals, you silenced them with lawsuits and payouts. How is any of that private? Ellen stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The famous Ellen's smile was completely gone now, replaced by visible anger and panic. I don't have to sit here and listen to this attack, Ellen said, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. Sit down, Ellen, Crockett said firmly. We're just getting started. Cooper looked between the two women, clearly realizing this had become something much bigger than a routine interview. The cameras kept rolling as Ellen stood there, clearly debating whether to storm off the set or try to fight back. That's when Crockett delivered the line that would make this moment legendary. Ellen, you can run away from this interview just like you ran away from your show when the truth came out. But you can't run away from the facts I'm about to share with America. Ellen's face turned red. Her hands were visibly shaking. The woman who had built her career on controlling every aspect of her public image was completely losing control on live television. And Jasmine Crockett was just getting warmed up. Ellen DeGeneres stood frozen in the CNN studio lights, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Every instinct told her to walk off the set, but Jasmine Crockett's challenge hung in the air like a dare she couldn't ignore. Fine, Ellen said, slowly sitting back down but perching on the edge of her chair like she might bolt at any second. Say what you came here to say. Crockett smiled, not the warm smile of someone enjoying themselves, but the cold satisfaction of a prosecutor who had just gotten the defendant to take the stand. Thank you, Ellen, because what I'm about to share isn't just about mismanaged charity funds. It's about a pattern of behavior that shows the real Ellen DeGeneres, the one behind the cameras and the be-kind messaging. Anderson Cooper looked like he wanted to interrupt, but the tension was so thick he didn't dare. This was clearly beyond anything in his interview prep. Crockett pulled out a thick stack of documents. Ellen, let's talk about your production company. A very good production. Specifically, let's talk about how you've treated the people who made you hundreds of millions of dollars. Ellen's eyes darted to the papers in Crockett's hand. Those are private business matters. We're private, Crockett corrected. Until your former employees started talking to congressional investigators about wage theft, unsafe working conditions, and systematic harassment. Amazing how much people will share when they're not bound by your NDAs anymore. The studio audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Ellen's publicist, sitting in the front row, looked like she was about to have a panic attack. Do you remember Maria Santos? Crockett asked, reading from one of her documents. Ellen's face went white. I don't know who. She was a cleaning lady on your show for 8 years, Crockett continued relentlessly. Single mother of 3. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and do you remember what your production company did when she asked for time off for chemotherapy? Ellen said nothing, but her hands were gripping her chair so tightly her knuckles were white. You fired her, Crockett said, her voice rising with genuine anger. You fired a woman with cancer because she couldn't clean your dressing room while getting chemo. Then your lawyers threatened her with a lawsuit if she talked about it publicly. The audience gasped audibly. Someone in the back shouted, "That's horrible." Ellen looked around desperately, clearly searching for any way out of this nightmare. That's not the whole story, Ellen stammered. Then tell us the whole story, Crockett challenged. Tell America why a billionaire celebrity felt it was necessary to destroy a cancer patient's life to protect your image. Ellen's famous composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand the pressures. The pressures? Crockett's voice exploded with incredulous fury. Ellen, you made $50 million that year. Maria Santos made 30,000. What pressure could you possibly have that justified destroying her life? Cooper finally found his voice. Ellen, is this allegation accurate? Ellen looked trapped, her eyes darting between Cooper and Crockett. Legal settlements often involve confidential terms. That's not a denial, Crockett pointed out coldly. Then she pulled out another document. But let's move on to David Kim. Ellen actually flinched at the name. Camera operator, worked for your show for 12 years. Loyal employee who won 2 Emmy Awards for his work on your program. Do you want to tell America what happened to David, or should I? Ellen said nothing, staring at her hands. David reported sexual harassment by one of your senior producers, Crockett continued. Instead of investigating or protecting David, you transferred him to a lower-paying position and eventually forced him out entirely. The harasser got promoted and a raise. The audience was getting visibly angry now. Someone yelled, "Shame on you," from the back of the studio. Stop, Ellen said quietly, then louder. Stop. Why should I stop? Crockett asked. You didn't stop when Maria Santos begged you not to fire her. You didn't stop when David Kim filed multiple complaints. You didn't stop when 3 different employees tried to kill themselves because of the toxic environment at your show. That last line hit like a bomb. The studio went dead silent. Ellen's face went from red to pale gray. That's not fair, Ellen whispered. Fair? Crockett stood up again, towering over Ellen, who seemed to be shrinking into her chair. Ellen, you want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair. She pulled out the final document from her folder, this one clearly different from the others, with official letterhead visible. This is a letter from the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, Crockett announced. We are formally investigating your business practices, your charitable organizations, and your systematic use of NDAs to silence victims. You're not just facing public embarrassment, Ellen. You're facing potential federal charges for fraud, tax evasion, and violations of labor law. Ellen shot to her feet so fast she knocked over her water glass, sending it crashing to the floor. This is insane. This is a witch hunt. A witch hunt? Crockett's voice dripped with disdain. Ellen, we have documentation. We have witnesses. We have financial records. We have victims willing to testify under oath. What we have is evidence of systematic abuse of power by someone who used her platform to preach kindness while practicing cruelty. Ellen was fully panicking now, looking around the studio like a trapped animal. I need to call my lawyers. This interview is over. The interview is over when I say it's over, Crockett said firmly, because I have one more thing to share with America. Ellen froze halfway to the exit. Ellen, you've been telling everyone that you've changed, that you've learned from your mistakes. But 3 weeks ago, you contacted Maria Santos, the cancer patient you fired, and offered her money to not cooperate with our investigation. The audience erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouts. Ellen spun around, her face a mask of pure rage. That's a lie, Ellen screamed. Crockett pulled out her phone. Is it? Because Maria recorded the phone call. She pressed play, and Ellen's voice filled the studio speakers. Maria, I know we had our differences, but I want to make things right. I'm prepared to offer you $500,000 to help you and your family move forward. All I ask is that you remember that we were all under a lot of pressure back then. Crockett stopped the recording. Witness tampering, Ellen. That's a federal felony. Ellen stood there in complete shock, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The woman who had controlled every aspect of her public image for decades was watching it all crumble in real time on live television. Ellen started. Then she looked around the studio one more time at the angry audience, at Cooper's shocked face, at the cameras that were broadcasting her destruction to millions of viewers. Then she did the only thing she could think of. Ellen DeGeneres turned and fled from the CNN studio, leaving behind her purse, her dignity, and any hope of a comeback. The audience erupted in a mixture of cheers and boos as she disappeared through the exit. Crockett stood there calmly gathering her documents, as if she'd just finished a routine committee hearing instead of destroying one of the most famous people in America. Cooper stared at the empty chair where Ellen had been sitting just moments before. Ladies and gentlemen, he said slowly, I think we've just witnessed something unprecedented. Crockett looked directly into the camera. America just witnessed accountability, she said firmly. Something Ellen DeGeneres has been avoiding for far too long. The studio erupted in applause as Crockett took her seat. Mission accomplished. The moment Ellen DeGeneres fled that CNN studio, social media exploded like nothing anyone had seen before. Within 30 seconds of her dramatic exit, Ellen Exposed was trending #1 worldwide. The footage of her running away played on every news channel, was shared millions of times, and turned into countless memes. But this wasn't just another viral celebrity meltdown. The consequences were immediate, severe, and far-reaching. Every major news outlet dropped their planned programming to cover the story. Fox News ran a chyron reading, Ellen flees after Congress member exposes charity fraud. CNN kept replaying the moment Crockett revealed the recorded phone call. MSNBC brought in legal experts to discuss the potential federal charges Ellen now faced. The most damaging clip, Ellen screaming, "That's a lie," before the recording proved she was lying, went viral instantly. TikTok users turned it into a meme format for calling out liars. Twitter users shared it with captions like "When your boss says they care about employee well-being." And when celebrities claim they've changed. Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, and every other celebrity news show had to completely rewrite their Ellen comeback story. For months they'd been preparing puff pieces about her redemption journey. Now they were covering what looked like the final destruction of her career. Ellen didn't make it home before her team started damage control. Her publicist released a statement within 2 hours. DeGeneres was ambushed with false allegations and taken out of context documents. She will be responding through appropriate legal channels. But that carefully crafted response was immediately undermined when paparazzi caught Ellen outside her Montecito mansion 3 hours later. The photos showed her screaming at photographers, her hair disheveled, her famous composure completely gone. "You vultures," she yelled, pointing at the cameras, "you're all part of this conspiracy. Jasmine Crockett is a nobody who's trying to make a name for herself by destroying me." The photos and video from that outburst became instant memes. Ellen, who had built her brand on kindness and positivity, looked unhinged and desperate. Her team tried to suppress the footage, but it was too late. Everyone had already seen the real Ellen. The next day, Ellen posted a rambling 12-minute video on Instagram that only made things worse. Sitting in what appeared to be her wine cellar, she looked directly into her phone camera and delivered what can only be described as an unhinged rant. "I want everyone to know that what happened on CNN was a setup," she said, her voice shaky and her eyes red from crying. "Jasmine Crockett came there with stolen documents and edited recordings. She's working with my enemies to destroy me because they can't stand that I'm trying to come back." The video was filled with conspiracy theories about coordinated attacks and jealous competitors. She claimed that her former employees were paid to lie about her, that the charity investigation was politically motivated, and that Anderson Cooper was in on it because CNN wanted rating. Most damaging of all, Ellen couldn't resist attacking Crockett personally. "She's just another angry politician looking for attention," Ellen said, clearly forgetting that Crockett had just presented documented evidence of Ellen's wrongdoing. "She doesn't understand what it's like to be successful, to have people constantly trying to tear you down." The video backfired spectacularly. Instead of generating sympathy, it made Ellen look petty, delusional, and completely out of touch. Comments sections filled with people pointing out that Ellen still hadn't denied any of Crockett's specific allegations. The Texas Congresswoman went from being known mainly in political circles to becoming a household name overnight. Her Twitter followers jumped from 50,000 to 2.8 million in 40. Video clips of her calmly destroying Ellen's arguments were shared by everyone from AOC to Joe Rogan. The most popular clip was Crockett's response when Ellen claimed the interview was unfair. "An ambush, Ellen? This is called accountability, something you've been avoiding for 2 years." That 15-second soundbite became the unofficial slogan of the entire controversy. Political commentators across the spectrum praised Crockett's performance. Conservative pundit Ben Shapiro tweeted, "I disagree with Crockett on most issues, but watching her dismantle Ellen's lies with actual evidence was masterful." Liberal commentator Joy Reid called it the most effective takedown of celebrity privilege I've ever seen. Late-night talk show hosts had a field day. Stephen Colbert did an entire segment called Ellen Degenerate, complete with a montage of her worst moments from the CNN interview. Jimmy Kimmel joked that Ellen ran away so fast, she probably broke her own dancing records. But Crockett didn't gloat. In interviews after the confrontation, she remained focused on the serious issues at stake. "This isn't about Ellen personally," she told Rachel Maddow. "This is about holding powerful people accountable when they abuse their platforms and hurt vulnerable workers." Ellen just happened to be the perfect example of how celebrity privilege protects abuse. Crockett's revelation that Ellen was under federal investigation opened the floodgates for legal action. Within a week, 3 different law enforcement agencies announced they were looking into Ellen's business practices. The IRS launched a formal audit of Ellen's charitable organizations, dating back 10 years. The Department of Labor opened an investigation into wage theft allegations at her production company. Most seriously, the FBI confirmed they were investigating Ellen for potential witness tampering, based on the recorded phone call with Maria Santos. Ellen's legal team went into overdrive, but the damage was done. Documents that had been sealed under NDAs were suddenly relevant to federal investigations, making them potentially accessible to prosecutors. Even worse for Ellen, her attempt to silence Maria Santos had backfired completely. Instead of staying quiet, Maria gave a heartbreaking interview to 60 Minutes about her experience working for Ellen and battling cancer while being threatened with lawsuits. She had everything, Maria said through tears. Money, fame. I had nothing except my kids and my hope that the chemo would work, but she still felt the need to destroy me just to protect her image. That's not the person America thought they knew. Within days of the CNN interview, Ellen's talent agency dropped her. Netflix canceled a comedy special she'd been developing. The Ellen DeGeneres Foundation for Workplace Wellness, the charity she'd announced during the interview, was quietly disbanded before it even officially launched. Most painfully for Ellen, many of her celebrity friends distanced themselves publicly. Oprah Winfrey, who had been supportive during Ellen's first scandal, released a statement saying she was deeply troubled by these new allegations and the documented evidence. Jennifer Aniston, who had appeared on Ellen's show dozens of times, posted on Instagram, "I believe in second chances, but only when people truly acknowledge their wrongs and make real amends to those they've hurt." Even Portia de Rossi, Ellen's wife, seemed to be distancing herself. Paparazzi photos showed her leaving their Montecito home with suitcases, though her representatives claimed she was just going to visit family. The Ellen Crockett confrontation became about much more than one celebrity's downfall. It represented a cultural shift in how America deals with powerful people who abuse their positions. Social media was filled with discussions about Ellen energy, the phenomenon of powerful people preaching kindness publicly while being cruel privately. Workers in all industries shared their own stories of toxic bosses who used corporate speak about family and values to mask abusive behavior. The hashtag John Accountability Not Apologies started trending, with people sharing examples of public figures who had tried to apologize their way out of serious misconduct without facing real consequences. Crockett had tapped into something bigger than Ellen's specific crime. She had given voice to everyone who had ever been silenced by NDAs, intimidated by expensive lawyers, or told to be grateful for jobs that treated them horribly. The financial consequences for Ellen were devastating. Her production company lost 3 major contracts within a week. Advertisers pulled out of deals with any project associated with her name. The value of her media properties plummeted as investors fled. Most symbolically, the Hollywood Walk of Fame announced they were reviewing Ellen's star in light of the serious allegations against her. While they stopped short of removing it immediately, the very fact that they were considering such an unprecedented action showed how completely Ellen had fallen from grace. Her Montecito neighbors reported that Ellen had become a virtual prisoner in her own home, with paparazzi camping outside and protesters occasionally showing up with signs reading "Be kind to your employees and justice for Maria Sant." Perhaps most ominously for Ellen, Crockett's congressional committee announced they were expanding their investigation to look at other celebrities who might be using similar tactics to silence employees and abuse their power. Ellen DeGeneres was just the beginning, Crockett announced at a press conference. "We've received tips about dozens of other high-profile figures who are using NDAs, legal threats and financial pressure to cover up workplace abuse. The era of consequence-free celebrity misconduct is over." The announcement sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Talent agents were reportedly advising their clients to review their business practices and settle any outstanding employee complaints before they became public. Several other celebrities who had faced workplace misconduct allegations in the past suddenly announced they were taking time off to focus on family or stepping back from public appearances to concentrate on personal growth. The Ellen DeGeneres destruction wasn't just entertainment. It was a preview of a new era in American accountability culture. Jasmine Crockett had shown that even the most beloved celebrities aren't immune to consequences when they abuse their power. More importantly, she had demonstrated that preparation, documentation, and courage could overcome even the most expensive PR teams and legal strategies. Ellen's team had spent millions trying to rehabilitate her image, but they couldn't defend against actual evidence presented by someone who had done her homework. The confrontation also highlighted the power of congressional oversight when it's used effectively. Crockett hadn't just embarrassed Ellen, she had used her platform to expose systematic abuse and set the stage for real legal consequences. For working people across America, watching Ellen's empire crumble was deeply satisfying. Here was someone who had preached kindness while firing cancer patients, who had built a fortune while stealing wages from vulnerable employees, finally facing the kind of consequences that regular people face when they break the rules. As we wrap up this incredible story, It's clear that Ellen DeGeneres' career is over. Not just paused or damaged, completely finished. The federal investigations will likely result in criminal charges. The civil lawsuits will drain whatever fortune she has left, and the court of public opinion has already delivered its verdict. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, has emerged as one of the most effective political figures in America. Her masterful destruction of Ellen proved that she can take on anyone, armed with nothing but facts and the courage to speak truth to power. This confrontation will be remembered as the moment when celebrity privilege met real accountability, and Ellen thought she could charm her way back into America's good graces, but she never expected to face someone like Jasmine Crockett, who came prepared for war. The message is clear: the days of consequence-free celebrity misconduct are over. Whether you're a talk show host, a movie star, or a tech billionaire, your fame and fortune can't protect you if someone like Crockett decides to hold you accountable. And for the rest of us, we just witnessed something beautiful, the moment when justice finally caught up with someone who thought she was untouchable. Thanks for watching this incredible breakdown of how Jasmine Crockett completely destroyed Ellen DeGeneres on live television. If you enjoyed seeing accountability in action, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about powerful people finally facing consequences for their actions. What did you think of Crockett's performance? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs to see what real accountability looks like. The Ellen DeGeneres era is officially over. The Jasmine Crockett era has just begun.